Aside from my Israel trip, I did a couple different road trips. One was in Texas, one was in rural Pennsylvania. Let me give you a little sample of the church signs that I came across. Honk if you love Jesus, text while driving if you want to meet him. It's a good one. It's good advice. Trust in God, but still lock your car, all right? Okay, and now the last one, which is not really funny, but it's an important part of our discussion. Reason is the greatest enemy that faith has. Yeah, that one is supposed to annoy you. These two endeavors, science and reason on the one hand, and religion on the other, they really are trying to get at two different things, right? Science and reason are asking questions like how. Religion is asking why. God says to Abraham, I want you to do what? I want you to sacrifice your son. This is an unbelievable moment where God is asking Abraham to do something rather extraordinary, and Abraham's response is rather extraordinary. Hineni, here I am. I am willing to stand up. This is me. I am willing to do what's right. Even if it's hard, here I am.
As the oldest of 4 boys, I think that my parents looked to me to encourage my brothers to embrace Texas. Through those series of conversations that my parents had with me, encouraging them to make the best of it, that was my Hineni moment.
It was like, well, your sister brought in the new vending machines. What are you going to do, Sammy's sister? Or your brother, he started the challah sale. What are you going to do, Joey's sister? And I was already trying to figure out who Julia was, and I didn't know how to play these other 2 roles in my life. And I just kind of started to, I guess, ignore them and be like, well, it doesn't have to be 3 different people. Like, I'm Julia, but part of that is that I'm a sister to my siblings. Part of that is that I really love being involved in SGA, BBYO, volleyball, whatever it was. I am Julia, this is me.
So I was a graduate student, and I had the opportunity, due to a scholarship that I had received, to go to Israel. And I had very little, if any, knowledge about the political situation in Israel. I didn't really know anything about the Middle East, and I certainly didn't know a lot about Judaism. And when I got there, it was very overwhelming and wonderful, but I have to say there was one specific Hineni moment for me. After dinner is where it really just sparked my interest, because a holistic conversation happened where the Jewish host family started asking us questions about Christianity, and we started asking them questions about Judaism. And so we were all just talking, and I stepped back and just watched it, and it was amazing, because imagine if you could have a conversation like that on a college campus. Imagine what we could do, imagine what would change. And so that was my moment. I was like, I have to get more involved.
Probably don't know that I'm an aspiring Buddhist. I have several conditions, but one of the conditions I have is I have a hard time focusing. I have what my Buddhist friends call a monkey mind. It kind of jumps around all the time. And what I need to do is kind of calm myself and focus. And thank goodness I married Miss Lupovich. She said, you know, Kirk, there's this meditation retreat we can go to, and it's over winter break. I said that would be great. So we get there, and then I find out that you can't talk for a week. So about 4 days go by, and I haven't said a word. And I'm looking at everybody, and it's like I've been seeing these people, but we haven't been communicating. And I'm thinking, you know what? I think they're crazy. And I think I'm crazy, and I'm losing my mind. And at the end of the 7 days, we were all together, and we all started speaking, and I'm going, oh my God, these people are amazing. And I'm so excited, and I feel so good. And it was like a great, moment for me. It was that was my moment.
I got injured really badly, actually, after my freshman year, and I was told I wouldn't be able to play sports for the rest of my life. And, that was really hard for me, so I was like, oh, what's the logical thing to do? Oh, opposite end of the spectrum, theater. I did really feel pressured to, stay in sort of a manly realm, so to speak. Grandparents would come up to me and say, you're growing into a fine young man, as if, these activities I was doing, were making me, a man. When I finally came home from a show one time, I was still getting the same support, and it made me really realize that just because, what I do doesn't necessarily make me any less of a man, this is me and this is me.
I've always been political, that's just who I am. And so as I progressed through my life, I just kept strengthening my beliefs and opinions. But as I got older, I felt like, the more I started talking about them, the more I expressed myself and my beliefs, the more people wanted me to shut up about them. Also, a lot of the time, I felt like I was discredited because I was younger. And then February 14th happened, which is supposed to be a day of love, but instead 17 kids were killed. And when Miss Williams and Miss Hughes started making this group to go to the March for Our Lives in Washington, I knew that I had to go. So I was standing there in the National Mall on Pennsylvania Ave, and I was looking at Emma Gonzalez, this other 17-year-old girl who was doing such an amazingly beautiful job at looking at 1 million people and talking about the things that she was passionate about, because the 45-year-old lawmakers behind her weren't doing anything. And it was in that moment that I realized that if I don't stand up for the things that I believe in, no one's going to. And right then and there, I couldn't have been anyone or anywhere else.
I want you to look at the logo because you may not have noticed a certain important part of it. That's how the word appears in the written Torah. And there's a famous Talmudic story told about those little crowns. Moses is hanging out with God, and he sees God actually putting these little adorations on the letters for Hineni. He says, God, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And God says, let me explain it. And he fast forwards Moses about 1,300 years. So now Moses, 1,300 years later, around the 1st century, is in a very, very famous classroom where the teacher is a guy named Akiva, Rabbi Akiva. And he is watching as Akiva makes all sorts of interpretations, and he derives lessons, not just from the words, but specifically from those little coronets, those little decorations. The script of Torah, it's still a living, breathing document that we have a right to grapple with and, in fact, an obligation to. You will have the opportunity to have Hineni moments, just like all 6 of them did, if you're open to them. When will those moments happen? When there's injustice around you, whether it's across the world or on this campus. When someone is asking you to do something that you know is not right. When someone is asking you not to be who you really are. You have an opportunity in all of those situations to stand up and to say, Hineni, here I am. This is me.